Hello and welcome to my reflection on the Gospel reading which is set for this Sunday, which is taken from St Matthew's Gospel chapter 10 to verses 24 to 39. And Matthew records Jesus saying this: "The student is not above the teacher, nor a servant above his master. It is enough for students to be like their teachers and servants to be like their masters. If the head of the house has been called Beelzebub, how much more the members of his household? So do not be afraid of them, for there is nothing concealed that will not be disclosed, or hidden that will not be made known. What I tell you in the dark, speak in the daylight. What is whispered in your ear, proclaim from the roofs. Do not be afraid of those who kill the body, but cannot kill the soul. Rather, be afraid of the one who can destroy both soul and body in hell. Are not 2 sparrows sold for a penny? Yet not one of them will fall to the ground outside your Father's care. And even the very hairs of your head are all numbered. So don't be afraid. You are worth more than many sparrows. Whoever acknowledges me before others, I will also acknowledge them before my Father in heaven. But whoever disowns me before others, I will disown before my Father in heaven. Do not suppose that I have come to bring peace to the earth. I did not come to bring peace, but a sword. For I have come to turn a man against his father, a daughter against her mother, a daughter-in-law against her mother-in-law. A man's enemies will be the members of his own household. Anyone who loves their father or mother more than me is not worthy of me. Anyone who loves their son or daughter more than me is not worthy of me. Whoever does not take up their cross and follow me is not worthy of me. Whoever finds their life will lose it, and whoever loses their life for my sake will find it." There are some very hard messages in this reading, and too many to try and explain them all in 10 minutes. We could spend many house group meetings trying to unpick all Jesus is saying in this passage. I would, however, like to give you an overview of what I think Jesus is trying to tell us today. Jesus has given us an example of how we should live our lives through his own life, and he is asking us to follow him and emulate what he has done in terms of his obedience to God and his love for other people, especially those on the fringes of society. We can be no greater than he is because he is the example we are to follow. Inevitably, though, as Jesus found opposition to what he proposed and what he was doing, the Pharisees in Mark's Gospel chapter 3 verse 22 claimed that Jesus' power came from Satan. So we should expect opposition when we proclaim Jesus' name. Jesus overcame all of these difficulties, and his promise to us is that if we stay faithful to him, we also will overcome difficulties and troubles, and therefore we should not be worried by those who oppose us. Paul, in his letter to the Romans, chapter 8 verse 31, said, "If God is for us, who can be against us?" So we stand undefeated because Jesus has already won the victory, and we should be able to speak out concerning the good news of Jesus Christ at any and every opportunity, undaunted. Jesus' promise to us in this passage is that God knows us intimately. He counts every hair on our heads, even if you're like me and a bit short of the covering. And so each one of us is precious to him. So we must not treat this love lightly. If we are precious to him, he must be precious to us. And with all things precious, we must be thoughtful in how we handle this relationship. Because like something delicate, it can be broken by careless actions on our part. Such careless actions can be as simple as not acknowledging that God is behind all that is good in this world, or even claiming that success we have in doing God's work was down to our own efforts. In Acts 12, verses 21 to 23, Herod Agrippa died a quite horrible death because he did not give thanks to God for the success he had had. In a similar manner, King Belshazzar of Babylon, you can read this in Daniel 5, verses 25 to 30, also died suddenly because his misuse of God's possessions. Our ministers and preachers deserve our support and encouragement because, although it is a calling to be undertaken in God's strength, Satan is always prowling around to sow the seeds of discouragement. In addition, as James said in his letter, chapter 3, verse 1, "Not many of you should become teachers, my fellow believers, because you know that we who teach will be judged more strictly." And so there's an additional responsibility placed upon the role, because what we say can be perceived to carry a lot of weight. Spreading the good news of Jesus is a commission laid upon us all, and so we should not expect to be commended when we are only doing our duty. Luke reminds us of this when he records what Jesus said in chapter 17, verse 10. "So you also, when you have done everything you were told to do, should say, 'We are unworthy servants, we have only been doing our duty.'" Through what we say and what we do, we can tell and show others the way to Jesus. But this will cause conflict, especially with those people who choose not to follow him, and it may cause divisions within families. Our aim is not to be divisive or to cause feuds, but equally we cannot gloss over deep divisions just for the sake of superficial harmony. Too often I think the church has papered over cracks in direction in an attempt to save face or give the impression of continued unity. In this passage, Jesus is saying that our prime allegiance must be to God. This point is echoed in Matthew chapter 12, verse 48 to 50, where Jesus describes his true family. If we make that decision to follow Jesus, just as the disciples did when he met them on the shore of the Sea of Galilee, then we must be ready to trust in Jesus totally. When we are willing to give up all we have or are and commit our lives to Jesus, then we will find true meaning and happiness, because as Jesus said, "Whoever loses their life for my sake will find it." So what in summary do I think Jesus is saying to us in this powerful passage? That his life has given us a perfect example of how we need to live our lives. We cannot do any better than that, and we may not even reach that level. But we can still do valuable service for God if we stay faithful to his will. We will experience opposition in many forms and from different people. Some may be very close to us. But we need to persevere, acknowledging at all times that it is from God that our strength comes. If we can achieve that, then Jesus has promised a place with him in heaven for each of us. Thank you.